I'm like really nerding out right now.
It's all right. It's all right. I get it. Like I nerd out on this stuff too. That's why I like it.
Hi Matt, and welcome to Barricade. This is Gar, and we're at the Garcade today.
How's it going?
I don't want to make the interview feel too much like it's just like, oh yeah, here's our interview. You know? I just kind of want to look through things, I guess.
So Major League, it's Sega.
Okay.
It plays a lot like a Nintendo baseball.
Okay.
It's super rare. There's only like 3 of them that I know of in the entire U.S. It's got this really cool like batting mechanism on it.
Yeah.
It's got a trackball. It's got
Is it like
everything. Yeah, it's got buttons,
That is
trackballs.
weird.
Like, it's got, and it's total blast to play. But the boards are super flaky. So I was talking with Ken from I Repair Sega.
Yes.
Dude, I have something I can test it and send the board. I'm like, yes. So I'm
Nice.
hoping I can get that back out on the floor because that's like, so it's impossible to find.
Oh.
What's this Sega one right here?
This is Sega Space Attack.
Space Attack. Okay.
So
Is this early 80s, I'm guessing?
Yeah, this is the dual VIC hardware.
Okay.
So there was like Head On and so like this was one of those styles. It's a total ripoff of Space Invaders.
Okay.
But it plays better. Like I actually like the gameplay on that better than I do normal Space Invaders, and it has a joystick, which is cool. Like you're not doing the whole button thing. So that's one I wish Ken could work on. It doesn't have a wire harness, so you can't really do much with it.
Ken's been in the industry for a long time.
He has a bootleg, so it's relatively rare at this point. Only a lot of them destroyed.
Wow.
But it's super cool. Like I wish I could get it. Like it's like a lot of these like kind of work. This one kind of works.
So.
But he's also going to take a look at my outrun boards for me.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he fixed your outrun.
Yeah.
Mine
So
back.
Ken worked on my outrun. The sound was out, and then all the backgrounds were completely out on it.
My board just totally went out. Yeah, he's amazing. He's really good.
Yeah.
I had him fix other stuff for
Yeah.
me. He
Very
fixed
nice
my
guy.
afterburner board. He
So-
did a lot of after
And
support.
then which ROM sets do you have? Do you have regular outrun?
Just regular outrun, yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not running the turbo ROMs.
I want to get a set of with the turbos too, so that I can
You
just.
gotta have the turbo button.
Oh,
That's
I thought
the
they.
trick.
I
No.
thought they could. They. Have
They
it,
might, yeah, you might be able to.
But my start button doesn't work. They had one of these at a bar nearby, and my parents, would go out there for Friday fish fries. So they had a Pac-Man, and then they had the mini-size one right next to it. And I don't remember how old I was. Probably under 10 years old, and that was probably the first time I ever played.
I think the old shaker technology.
Yeah.
I love the fact that I have an afterburner because it actually just shakes when you blow up.
Yeah.
They added a little bit more to the gameplay back in, the things were still very bland. I mean, it wasn't like all the drivers nowadays with the force speed. This was a big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, this used to be a Radical Bikers.
Radical
and it's
Bikers.
being converted into
Oh, it's a
Mortal Kombat.
Okay, this one must have been out on the floor the last time I was out here.
I have 2 of them.
Is that all water, dude?
Yeah.
Where
Yeah, so we
did you-
started clearing it out.
I've never seen Francis get down to these coin doors. Like I've never seen coin doors like that. So is
It's
that
super
what the
cool.
universal ones look like?
Yeah, the early Universal cabinets are really cool because like this lights up
Yes.
as well. And so you get a more kind of immersive play experience.
Nice.
These are interesting with these leaf switches and the way that ball sits in there.
It all goes with. And it's meant to be like a piece of art. It's really cool.
You got your oscilloscopes and all sorts of stuff back here.
Yeah, I don't use them.
I've taken electronics classes, so I learned a little bit about using an oscilloscope, and I started with old HP ones, like really old ones in high school, and then by the time I got to college, they had some really nice equipment, but I mean, I don't know. I don't remember how to use any of that, but
I don't remember how to use it either. That's the funny thing. Like, I went to college back around 2001, so.
But I just feel like I forget everything I learned, and it's just like, I feel like I learned a lot.
Well, I went into IT because that's where the money is.
Yeah.
That's what a lot of us do. And
I'm
then,
going
like,
for
you
school
forget
for IT now.
this
too.
side of it.
Yeah. Just all these mods.
Yeah, I know. Got a little bit of burn in there.
This looks like it was a pole position at one time from the burn-in. I recognize that anyways, Pac-Man burn-in. It's probably mostly Pac-Man burn-ins on the line.
Yeah, we got Pac-Man
It's
down
not
here.
as bad of a disaster as it normally is.
Yeah.
No, it's fine. My house looks like a disaster.
Hey, it's my house too.
Our house. And then you got like the plastics for Tron back here.
Yeah, we had another Tron that the cabinet was bad on, so I literally have like a whole spare Tron.
Wow.
Have you seen our Tron on the floor?
I think I've looked at it a little bit the last time I was here.
The video running in the background is so cool. If you haven't, normally there's a translate that sits back there, and so the monitor actually runs clips and shows that through the window.
This is from a Pac-Man pinball.
Mr. and Mrs. Pac-Man pinball, yeah.
Nice. Can you find replacement parts for those at all or not?
Some stuff yes, some stuff no. This particular pop bumper cap you can't find printed like this anymore.
Wow.
Somebody did reproduce them. It's a little different. I bought a couple, like the black wasn't black, like the light kind of shone through it.
Where did your passion for arcade games start?
Well, as far as a collector or just as a person? I mean,
Maybe a little bit of both. I mean, like,
so I'm 47 years old. When a lot of the video games were coming into relevance, I was very, very young.
yeah.
6 years old to 8 years old. And so, that was the same time that the Atari 2600 came out. And so I had an Atari 2600 and I was exposed to all of that early technology very, very early on. And then as time would go on and as I got older, my dad was on softball teams and stuff. We'd go to the bar afterwards and hang out. I'd get a kiddie cocktail and they'd have one or two pinball machines there.
Yeah.
Go plunk a couple of dimes in or a couple of quarters and play a couple of games of pinball. And so as I grew up through all these different instances in my life, there was always arcade games and video games. And, I'm less of a console gamer. I got to a point in my life where I wanted to focus on doing other things. I've always been more of a hobby guy. And so I kind of merged away from the consoles and started doing collectible card games and things like that. So I've been really into gaming my entire life. I grew up in Shorewood, so we had Napoleon's, which was a place where you could go and buy board games and Warhammer minifigures and Dungeons and Dragons books. And so I grew up going there and getting my Dungeons and Dragons books at 12 years old and playing RPGs. And so gaming's been a huge part of my life. And then as I got older, I was looking for something a hobby to do instead of going out to the bars. And I was like, man, I work in IT. I want to keep a little bit of my electronics knowledge. And I was working one day and one of my buddies was like, yeah, I collect pinball machines and jukeboxes. And I'm like, whoa. You can have pinball machines? And he's like, why can't you? It's just a pinball machine. I'm like, why can't you? And so it was it sparked something with me, and then it became, I'm going to go out and pick up a couple of games and see if I can figure out how to fix them. And so that was during the early days of bulletin boards and getting
nice.
Posting things online about being able to, what's wrong with this? How can I fix this? What should I be looking for?
Yeah.
Things are very different now.
Yeah.
Because now I can go on Facebook and I can post something in a Facebook group and within seconds I've got a response. Whereas back then, you'd wait 24 hours and if you didn't get a response, then you'd have to bump your post and hope somebody else didn't see it. So it was very different. It's very slow to pick up back then.
Well, back then I remember even going to the video game stores and having to really just kind of dig and look for find places to find old video games. It wasn't quite cool yet.
Get a little closer.
Okay.
Perfect.
But old video games weren't quite in style yet. So when I liked a lot of this stuff, I was just man, why do you still play Mortal Kombat 3? Haven't you moved on to the new game? Haven't you moved on? No, I kind of got stuck. Sega Genesis,
Well, that's
Super
where
Nintendo.
that's where the nostalgia factor kicks in. Where guys like you and I, the reason we go back to those games in part is because there were things going on. There was, enjoyment attached to that.
I think I got so stuck in it that I kind of once kind of moved to I got my N64. That was the first console I got, and I loved it. I thought that was really cool, and I remember going to some of the arcades. I remember there was the Shakey's, so they had a pole position and a air hockey table. So I remember playing that a little bit, but I mean, Cruisin' was pretty much, Cruisin' and Pac-Man are pretty much the games I played a lot of, and, maybe a little Soul Calibur and Dynamite Cop, so I mean, that early 2000s, late 90s kind of, hodgepodge of, like, get a little bit of the 80s games in there, and
yeah, you get some of the like holdover from the bigger name titles that could last, and then you had the new influx, like the cool fighting games that were coming out.
Oh yeah,
driving games that were starting to come out.
That was like the neat thing, like seeing I think I went out to like Minnesota with my parents and they had Cruisin' Exotica there, and I think that might have been the first time I saw Cruisin' Exotica. That was probably right like 1999 when the game came out.
Right. And that was about that time
crap.
that there was a shift where the consoles had finally caught up to what the arcades could do. Because I remember PlayStation 1 and playing the original Tekken on that and being like, dude, this game is amazing. Like, hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
Like, oh, 10 move combos, yes. Like, and you go and you learn that for a character, then you gotta learn somebody else, and the timing gets all goofy, and it's like you would just keep going back. And, like I said, nowadays we go back to that again because like we remember those fun times when we had the time to just sit around and do that all the time.
I'm kind of curious, like, did you start collecting before you met your wife, or was it
after his
and she stuck with you.
Yeah, she stayed with me.
Friends is still stuck with me after I have Halloween games.
So far.
Oh
yeah, like actually when we bought our house, we there weren't any games in the basement, there weren't any games out in the garage, and it wasn't until we actually had the kids where I was like, I don't necessarily want to be out in the bars all the time, and
was there a rule of how many games you could have in the house?
There was. I was allotted square footage, so like you'd get really creative with how you like put everything.
Oh yeah, Matt plays that game.
But that's cool because like when I did this, that held over like my creativity and being able to place games. I have more experience than my business partner or my wife, and so like the floor layout is really cool and it's a lot of fun and it flows really well. And that's because originally I had this much space, now I have this much space, and even though I'm trying to juggle games and trying to like keep adding more and more things to the floor and keeping that flow and keeping that, this is my aesthetic, and we really like it's worked well for us.
At what point was the business idea more of like we're running out of space at home, or was it just more of like the passion part of it, or like how do you explain?
I knew I wanted to do it. It was something that I had been pondering for 2 or 3 years, and I actually got to a point where my job satisfaction at the job that I was at doing IT had just totally tanked. I'd been with the company for almost 10 years, and it was a sinking ship. It wasn't a good culture there. It was very toxic, and so I was, every day I was like, dude, I'm just gonna quit. And eventually I was like, you know what? Like, if you're just gonna quit, you better come up with a backup plan.
Yeah.
And I started really doing some soul searching, and I was like, you know what? Like, going back into IT is not gonna make me happy. And I sat down and I started weighing different options and coming up with various solutions, like how do I come up with money for this, and how do I, where's the space going to be? And that's when I engaged my business partner, Tim, who was my best friend at the time. And I was like, you know what, man, I think we can make a business of this. And I sat down and I wrote out a 26-page business plan and figured it out top to bottom as best I could. And so when we got into it, I was very fortunate that I had other people that owned arcades that I could kind of lean on.
Yeah.
Scott Lambert from Underground Retrocade, he was a huge help for me. Doc Mack helped me out.
Oh wow, Doc Mack.
Like they gave me pointers. They told me some of the ins and outs before I got into it. And so I did my research. I did my legwork. And so when I approached my business partner and I approached my wife, like, this is what I want to do. They were like, well, you've taken most of the risk factor out. Like, we've broken it down. We only need to get through this many people just to make rent. And, here's how it's going to work. And we're like, let's give it a try. If nothing else, after a couple of years, we'll call it quits. We'll just move on and find something else.
How many years are you guys in this now?
We just passed our 4.5-year mark.
Wow.
So we're coming up on 5 years. We survived COVID.
Yeah.
Our first year was amazing. Like, we couldn't believe it. The first day we opened, we were concerned, like, okay, how is this going to go? What's this going to be like? We had like no money left in the bank accounts. We had like spent every penny we had trying to just keep the place running and doing what we could do to open the doors.
Were you in this location?
We were. We had 60 games on the floor.
Okay.
And
how many games are you guys at about right now?
Well, we have 175 in the free play area.
Wow.
And we do have other like point redemption and other machines available to
Wow.
play. So
that's amazing.
And we just, initially having no money, and we opened our doors and like 200 people showed up. We were like, oh my god, we just made rent. Like this is incredible. We still have a whole month to go.
Like,
and
did you put an advertisement on it or anything?
we
or
did. Like,
how did the word
we
of
went
mouth,
to. We did a lot of word of mouth. We did the Midwest Gaming Classic, and we got a booth there before we even opened our business. And we said, coming soon to Menominee Falls. Come check us out. Follow us on Facebook. You'll get updates. And so we, it was very grassroots.
Yeah.
And so we went out and we hit our targeted audience as hard as we could. And 2 months later, we opened our doors to a great reception, and we haven't looked back since. Like, it's been
awesome.
phenomenal.
I think it was Midwest 2019 was the first year I went with one of my best friends, and we went down to the Garcade room, and it was awesome. And then we wanted to come the day after, but I didn't get to make it till like a few weeks ago, and Francis and I and my friend Max got to come here. But I just remember, being at Midwest even that year, and then this past year, going to Midwest and seeing that little area. I just had so much fun with I brought my friend Jeremy from Pinball Mayhem. He's really cool, and he's more of a pinball guy, so it was cool just to get to play like Galaga with him. And I was showing him, like, dude, I grew up with Maximum Force, you gotta try this out. And he was having a lot of fun with it. Like Duran playing in the background and lights, and it was
like, that's what
awesome.
We wanted to do at the Midwest Gaming Classic, a snapshot of what it's really like when you come here. Like, we wanted a mini Garcade experience.
Oh, yeah.
And I think we nailed it. Like,
yeah.
I think we did it really, really well. Like, it was a blast. People noticed it, kept in people's minds. People are still talking about it. So, every once in a while I hit gold with a marketing stunt.
I'm really glad that you get to show us through here at this
In the back area.
Okay, so
Surfing Safari is really cool. It's a very low run Golly game, very low run. It was actually based off of a theme park.
Oh, okay.
And so they had, I think it was in Iowa or something like that. So they actually had the alligator. So that's what they based it off of.
What year is this from?
This was 91.
There's like little palm trees on there. I've never seen that.
Yeah, it's cool. Like there's the water slide.
Yeah.
So it's a ramp that you actually come all the way down.
I like the water slide.
It's neat. It's got a whirlpool in the middle.
There's some like creature.
Yeah. His nose lights up. It's funny.
Slippery when wet. Surprised they didn't get sued by whatchamacallit.
Bon Jovi.
Yeah.
Nice.
This actually works. We just don't have room for it on the floor. This machine tried to kill me.
Oh no.
So I'm like
Is the
totally
monitor
against it.
in the
Yeah, it's top facing down.
So
Wow.
I had the big yellow
cockpit
one. We went down to Darlington. This guy had probably like 40 some games just getting water damage in this shed. This guy couldn't afford his rent for this arcade you want to start. And we went down, it was right before COVID, and I wanted to run back and get more of these games, but we got basically 2 games. We got a Steel Gunner and we got a Race Driving. The Race Driving was missing the board, sadly, so I couldn't find a board for this thing. And there was about this much raccoon feces.
Yeah.
And rat shirts right in the back. The beginning of my pandemic was basically strap on a mask, strap on some gloves, and go at this thing, just clean it out. And I sold it to a guy and made a good couple bucks off of it. But I mean, this is cool. It has
I don't know how much of it's original.
Can I sit down on this?
Yeah, you can sit down. It's
This
stable.
is weird.
Yeah.
Okay.
More stable than me, anyways.
Is this the same kind of shifter that's on the pole position?
Yeah,
It
I
was
think
the same
so.
kind of. Okay, it's a little different than the big one, but yeah, it has the same wheel. But did this thing almost fall over anything?
I was actually pulling it on a dolly by myself, and it's 450 pounds.
Yeah.
And I'm pulling it down one of our aisles, and as I'm doing it, I didn't realize my electrician left his tools in the middle of the aisle.
Oh no.
and I tripped, and the whole thing came down on top of me.
Oh my god.
And I'm lying there in the middle of the floor, and my business partner's like off in another part of the arcade.
Oh my
I'm like,
god.
Tim, he's like, what? The game tried to kill me. I need your help. And he goes back. He's like, oh my god! Like 3 people just sat on me, pulled the game off. I'm like, it was okay. Big joke is this game almost killed me. The fact that like I didn't get hurt or anything makes it funny.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that
Oh
story.
in the side, yes, in the right side. So they have
Which
to
means
put
you have to put it like on the floor in the right spot, otherwise,
Yeah.
like people don't see the things button. That's part of the reason you have the floor. Like,
Oh gosh. You want to buy it off
you
of
take
him?
both of them. Like,
two of them.
yeah, there's a second one.
Oh god.
No way.
Oh
Why is
god.
this one- Why is this one? Were they originally white? Why
You
is it
could link them.
Oh my god.
Oh
I
yeah.
actually have the link cable for them. So
That's so cool.
yeah, this one's got some
I
issues.
forgot
and
because Race Robin was the sequel. Yes. It was so gross. I sat down in the thing before cleaning it up.
No.
We didn't even get to haul it in. We hauled it into the garage.
Yeah.
Isn't it around 700 pounds for the big one? Like,
A million.
It's a little,
650,
it weighs a little
700
bit more than this.
Well, it's a little lighter because it didn't have the board in it, so.
I'll knock that 2 pounds off.
Yeah, right.
It's a medium res monitor. It has a weird monitor, I guess.
Yes,
And then-
it is a medium res.
But this, like, I don't even know how you would got because it's all that'd be very top heavy.
It is. That's part of the reason they have the handles up in the top.
Yeah.
So you get better leverage from up here. So between that and then I have an appliance dolly where it has like wheels that kick up on a 45-degree angle. So once I get it back, I can just roll it. And so like I literally can stand on it and get enough leverage to tip it myself.
So this fascinates me a bit too because
It's another low-run Gottlieb strikes and spares. It uses pinball flippers
okay.
to
Are
launch
these-
an
are these-
oversized pinball.
Yes, I was
Nice.
thinking these look a little bit bigger. Okay.
And so it kicks it into play, and then you knock it down, and it rolls over, and you try and get strikes, and it plays like bowling. And
So it's kind of like a mixture of a shuffle alley mixed with a pinball machine.
yes,
Wow.
yeah, it's
Wasn't there another game called Strikes and Spares?
there was
from,
1978 Alley.
Oh, okay. Wow, do you know the year of it? Nice.
Yeah, this guy's got his
I could
facts
be wrong.
down.
I'm guessing.
Yeah.
You have us
Early
convinced.
solid state.
We won't be fact checking too much.
Somebody will. That guy
Yeah.
was totally wrong. He doesn't know what he's talking about.
Actually, they'll probably drive views if you get a nice comment war started.
Right? Yeah.
All 2 people that watch my show, but like,
Yeah, but like, you know, they'll share it and say, this is how wrong this guy is.
Right? Yeah. Don't listen to him.
so and then you got a World Cup. So
Williams World Cup, 1978 Williams System 3.
I'm always terrible with
Love it.
telling the years on pinball machines because the artwork and stuff. Like usually the older games are more like
The displays.
cards, right? Okay.
The
Oh.
displays.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So on
There'd be the-
it would be EM pinball machines, which are the dials, and they introduced the alphanumerics in the early to mid 80s.
Okay.
They started going to DMDs in the early 90s, and so you kind of get a feel for about the time frames. There's a couple of machines where they offered them in both electromechanical or solid state.
Oh,
As
interesting.
they're in that transition period where people weren't sure about the technology.
But like out of all the games that you have running here on Howling, what's like the rarest machine that you have up and running on the floor right now?
That's a good question. What is the rarest machine? I mean, our Cosmotrons they've only produced about 75 of them.
Oh yeah, that's a
Even
newer
less than
one.
the Deluxatron.
Yep.
The one that we have is production serial number 000.
Wow.
So the guys that made it are friends of mine. I've known them for
Nice.
years and years. And
Oh, the Cosmotrons.
to try to help Shane and Dave out. I tried to motivate them to continue doing more with it and sell more units.
They're really neat.
I wound up to help them out. I bought the first one.
You should get a hold of, I don't know if you saw it in Midwest, this guy that has, I think he called it, not Galactic Attack, but basically he took a 4-player Pac-Man Versus and turned it into a 4-player Galaga, but it looks like a really neat game. So
Yeah,
I'm hoping
there's
that
a
he
lot of
can get-
cool indie homebrew stuff going on.
It'd be cool if that guy could get some distribution, kind of like the Cosmotron, or however you say it, or you have like 75 of them. It'd be cool to get one of those here or at like one of the local arcades. It'd be cool to see that, take off a little bit.
We've got a couple of games on the floor that are like lower run, harder to find, like the Spectrum Fireball kind of plays like a cross between foosball and air hockey. Thanks for coming out.
Thank you. Thank you so much for showing us the place.
Oh, you bet. You bet. We love doing this. Like, it's super cool. It's a fun job to have. I don't want to go back to a real job, so I'll keep doing this as long as I can.
It's cool to geek out with somebody that loves arcade games and, really, put so many years into doing this. I really think it's amazing what you do.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for the tour today.
You got it.
Thank you.
Not a problem. Glad you guys came out.
I would like to thank Mara for making this happen. Thank you for introducing me to your husband, Gar. Gar, thank you so much for the wonderful interview with you and showing me around the place. And thank you for letting me volunteer for you guys. Can't wait to do more.